Um, but yeah, I mean, you say, be notable. Like that's, I think one of the challenges for my line of work is we say no more than we say yes, especially when it comes to creating new articles. Wikipedia editors do set that bar pretty high, and they know they're doing it because, well, they know that Wikipedia confers that legitimacy, that authority. They themselves don't want to be arguing about who's important as much as they can help it. And yeah, like, I would say instead of be notable, I would say get notable.
Welcome to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander. And today I'm talking with William Beutler. He also goes by Bill and is a leading expert in Wikipedia consulting and founder of Beutler Ink, a digital agency specializing in helping brands navigate the complexities of Wikipedia. Since launching Beutler Ink in 2010, Bill has worked with hundreds of clients, including Fortune 50 companies, to develop ethical and effective strategies for engaging with the platform. His journey into Wikipedia began in 2006 when he became an editor and recognized the platform's growing influence in the digital age. In 2014, Bill led an open letter to Wikipedia advocating for ethical engagement from the PR industry, a move endorsed by leaders from 8 of the world's top PR firms. He also writes the Wikipedian, a widely read blog exploring Wikipedia's community and challenges, and WikiWise, a newsletter about Wikipedia for business audiences. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
So, Wikipedia is just this big black box that I can't wait to
Yeah.
hear about today.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you want to become a Wikipedia editor in the first place?
Interesting question. It's funny because I was fascinated with Wikipedia for like a couple of years before I ever even tried editing it myself. I just thought it was a fascinating project. So I guess that's the first answer was I thought this was incredibly cool. I myself, going like back to childhood, have always been someone who I wrote stories as a kid. I did journalism in high school and college. Like I edited a magazine in college. So both writing and publishing as well are both things that fascinated me. So like I was also an early blogger when, the Blogspot, platform emerged. I had more than one there. And so I was always looking at Wikipedia like, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I'm not always a natural joiner, so I didn't leap to get involved in this thing that's actually kind of a movement until later, until just a couple years later. I mean, at this point, I've edited Wikipedia for close to 20 years. We're talking about, 2006 was when I made my first edit, and it's been a fascinating thing to do.
So, I mean, there's got to be some kind of innate drive for rightness in the world to want to edit Wikipedia. Tell me about that.
That's interesting. So, I mean, we're kind of asking about what's the motivation of editors, maybe not just myself, but why other people.
Yeah, I mean, because I've read, hundreds of things on thousands of things on Wikipedia over the years, and I've never thought, that needs to get fixed.
Have you never edited Wikipedia even once?
Not even once.
Not even once. Wow. But
I think it's probably like if I could just. Generally, I like to be anonymous online.
Sure.
So that's part of it. I don't like creating accounts on things,
mm-hmm.
but I think it's also like the lift of kind of figuring it out, and I just feel like, I'm fine with it being wrong.
I mean, it has a steep learning curve. It's not for everybody. It turns out writing an encyclopedia is actually really hard. It's like to do it well, to do it at a high level. And the truth is, there's not one size fits all approach to being a Wikipedia editor. If you want to be a Wikipedian, that's a term that editors use for themselves. All you have to do is make some edits from time to time and consider yourself to be one. There are some people who spend hours every day. And the most active editors in the community, there's probably a few thousand people who are really just editing, if not around the clock, then they devote significant amounts of their free time to it. And then there's people who just edit a couple times a month, and outside of my work, which we'll talk about, I'm the sort who only edits a couple times per month. A lot of times, just small little changes here and there. Once a year, maybe I'll actually drop in a whole new article that I wrote out of personal interest. And back to your question, I mean, personal interest is kind of the main answer to why people edit, and that takes many different forms. Some people genuinely want to help shape human knowledge, like they're thinking about it in those terms. But many people don't. Many people only care about one narrow topic. Some people maybe only care about one narrow point. I have a friend who has occasionally gotten himself into arguments over like politics in the Middle East, and he had to back away from it because it was just like consuming him and annoying his wife. So there's all kinds of reasons why people might do it. Before you even get to the commercial motive, which is what we'll be talking about as well. Like I know a lot of Wikipedia editors. A lot of them are academics or librarians who have some kind of interest in just like collecting and organizing information in a way that I sometimes actually liken it to knitting. It is something you can do with your hands that is kind of repetitive, and it can be soothing. There are ways to edit Wikipedia that are soothing, and there are ways to edit Wikipedia, like my friend, that's anything but. But I mean, it's an enormous place, so there's all kinds of ways to get involved.
So it sounds like it kind of just, it's making the world better, essentially, is...
I think that is the popular conception. There's a famous quote from Wikipedia's founder, Jimmy Wales, that's, Wikipedia is about, compiling the sum of all human knowledge in every language for everyone to read for free. That's the high-minded version of why Wikipedia exists and why people should do it. And I do think people do take that seriously, but I'm also not so naive as to think that that's the only reason why people do.
Yeah, the world right now is just amazing that we have access to more information than we've ever had access to in history.
More than we can use.
Yeah, absolutely. So you founded a PR firm. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I never necessarily set out to found a PR firm. Like I said, I'm not much of a joiner, I guess. I also was not much of an employee, and I don't mean I was bad at my jobs. I think I was pretty good at my jobs. I just kind of knew that I wanted to go do my own thing at a certain point. And so I started out in journalism in D.C. I wrote for a nonpartisan tip sheet focused on campaigns, a little bit like Politico, but or Axios, but different. And
do nonpartisan, does that even exist anymore?
It's, it's all debatable, right? It's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
It's called The Hotline. It still technically exists. It's published by National Journal, the same organization that owns The Atlantic. Its primary audience is political professionals and campaign professionals.
Okay.
So it could be like the day after the presidential election, and the top story in The Hotline is the presidential election, 4 years down the road.
The next one, who's going to be running or something?
Yeah, exactly. The speculation.
Yeah.
And that section grows and grows. Anyway, that's how I started my career was, frankly, it's kind of similar to Wikipedia in a way that what we were doing is we were not doing a lot of original journalism, but we were taking what was in the news. I would start every morning by scouring local newspapers around the country. I had a certain section of the alphabet, and other colleagues had other parts of it. We'd find all the political stories, we'd print them up, we'd get them organized, and then we'd take, pieces of it and we'd put it together. In a way, it's really a lot like a Wikipedia article. And I didn't even think about that until years later.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed doing both things. So that kind of made sense. But I did that for a while. I then went to go work for what today would be a social media marketing company, although at the time, new media was the term they were calling it, because this is mid-2000s. When I joined, Facebook was still for college students, and Twitter was but a gleam in Jack Dorsey's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were doing a lot of message boards and forums at that point in time. And I was brought in as a blog guy because I had ended up, like I said, being a blogger, knowing a lot of bloggers, especially in politics. And so I never wanted to just, be a lifer at any particular company. I wanted to go do my own thing. And so for the whole time I was casting about, trying to figure out what's a plausible thing that I can do of value that I enjoy doing, that somebody would pay me to do, right? And yeah, it turned out to be Wikipedia, which is, I remember a friend and colleague asking me, "Are you sure there's a business in this?" And this is circa 2009 or so, right before I left to go do my own thing. And I said, yes, I believe there is. but I was just, being optimistic about it.
Hmm.
So I went up. I was a solo practitioner for a few months until I just started to pick up more business. And so I brought in one person as a part timer who became my first full time employee. And in the course of the first 3 years, we grew to 4 people, then 7. We actually added doing social media marketing, content marketing as well. It's a thing we do, but Wikipedia is our main focus. And yeah, an agency kind of grew up around me. It wasn't my lifelong dream to do so, but in order to do all the work that I was passionate about and that was coming to us, building an agency was a necessity.
So what are these clients paying you to do?
They are paying us to help them influence what Wikipedia says about them. And, I think it's interesting, like that's how they would put it, right?
Hmm.
When I am, speaking to fellow Wikipedia editors, because again, I do edit on my own time, not as much as I used to, but, the Wikipedia editors are always wary of outside entities. So if I say, as I just did, I'm helping them influence what Wikipedia says about them or about topics they care about, that will make Wikipedia editors a little antsy. And so when I turn around, the other thing that I say is that I help those companies and organizations, follow Wikipedia's rules, help them understand what it is that Wikipedia is looking to them for. And I always describe it in terms of you have your messaging goals over here, and Wikipedia has its mission over here, and like that moon-shaped Venn diagram, overlap in the middle is where we are most successful. We are helping Wikipedia to improve its coverage of topics that regular Wikipedia editors mostly don't care about. Like those volunteer editors, I said they edit out of personal interest. A lot of them are really interested in things like, weather systems and hurricanes. Those have really, really detailed Wikipedia articles. They're not all that interested in writing about, they're not ready to write, corporate profiles for free. That's just not what animates most of them. And so we actually fill a gap for Wikipedia while we're filling a gap for our clients' PR and marketing strategies.
That makes sense. That's simple. I
Yeah.
like that. So, of course, our listeners are thinking about, well, hold on a second. I don't have a Wikipedia article. So, let's, before we get into how and if that's even possible,
Right.
how do you think? So you've got a PR firm, not a Wikipedia firm. It's not Beutler Ink. Wikipedia. It's PR. What's the relationship between those two?
Between Wikipedia and PR?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably a bigger relationship than either side would really want it to be, ideally. I don't think any client comes to us because they are just so darn interested in Wikipedia for its own sake. They
Right.
usually come to us because, like, their CEO had seen the article. Like, let's say the CEO's nephew brought her the Wikipedia article at Thanksgiving, said, "Do you see what they said about your company here?" And then she's like, "Okay, I got to find someone to fix this." And so that trickles down to somebody looking us up, getting a recommendation to talk to us. And so, the reputation is really the top reason that they will come to us. And sometimes it's because there's an actual acute thing that's wrong that's really bugging them, or like some activist has taken over a page and made it slanted. That certainly happens. It's not the most common thing. The most common thing is neglect, that Wikipedia editors just kind of never really develop the article, and so it can be wrong in sometimes humorous ways if if it's just wrong. Like over on the Wikipedia side, every Wikipedia article is supposed to be supported by what Wikipedia terms reliable sources. And the most common type of reliable source for existing current topics, whether that's anything, really, hurricanes as well as companies, is going to be coming from journalism. And so journalism has a very, very strong relationship with PR. I mean, I began my career as a journalist. I don't know if you did as well, but a lot of my
No.
colleagues, you did not. A lot of my colleagues certainly were. My head of strategy is a former newspaper journalist, and so the people will sometimes ask us like, well, if we don't qualify for a page now, can you go out and get that coverage? That is not a thing that we do, but we do work with a lot of PR firms. So we will, refer out business to say, here's somebody who just, the business is interesting. They genuinely should have an article, but they just don't have the coverage there.
Mhm.
Well, a PR person could help generate that kind of news coverage that could take someone over the line to get a Wikipedia article.
So it sounds like you're saying that news coverage is a requirement prior to having a Wikipedia article. So let's get into that. So what's it take to get to deserve or earn, an
Yeah.
article?
So Wikipedia has a guideline called the notability guideline. I expect you're nodding. I think people have heard of it. They might have been told you're not notable, and that's kind of no fun to hear that. Like, is notability the same thing as importance? Yes and no. Like, it's kind of sufficient that you have to have some level of public interest in you, but then it also needs to be demonstrated through news coverage. So kind of mainstream news writing that is more focused on reporting than on opinion. That is not just a reprint or a rewrite of a press release. It needs to be something where a paid staffer at a publication that you have probably heard of has taken an interest in your subject, whether it's your boss or whether it's your company, and they've written a profile that cannot just be a straight up Q&A. It needs to be a piece of the editorial product of that publication. And then you actually need to have that happen at least a couple more times. When someone comes to us and asks, can you create a Wikipedia article for us? The first thing we ask is send us your 3 best links. And even explaining what makes best, can be a little bit challenging because you might have a great Q&A published in a newspaper, but actually the newspaper is spot on, but the Q&A format is not what Wikipedia is looking for, because in their point of view, the Q&A doesn't have the same kind of fact-checking and rigor applied to it that would a standard reported piece. Another thing that we see a lot is people will bring us Forbes contributor pieces, and they look good. Oftentimes they're really quite well written, but Forbes contributor pieces are basically unpaid. Some of them even pay to have those columns. They're not the real journalism of Forbes. They're not written by a staff writer, and so Wikipedia doesn't accept them. And so what you need to do is get enough of these stories together that all the details in these stories, if you used only the details in these articles, that you could write a sufficiently informative, article about your topic that is satisfying. Like, it actually tells your story properly. You, for the most part, cannot fill in details with your own, press releases or company blog. You can fill in certain details from publications that are not writing directly about you if you get glancingly mentioned. But it's kind of a puzzle. You have to have the right amount of coverage, and you put the puzzle together. And if you stand back and you're like, oh, this tells my story well, and all the citations go to third-party journalism, then you have a real chance of getting in Wikipedia.
Okay, so help me understand some examples here, because
Sure.
most of the articles that I would see about local small businesses might be a feature of the founder or a press release from the city that they had donated to this nonprofit. That doesn't sound like it's what it's going to take to get an article, though.
I mean, the feature about the CEO could be a point in favor of an article about the CEO. It kind of depends on maybe how serious of journalism it is, I guess. Anything that is a little bit, too fawning, sometimes Wikipedia editors will push back and say, and just be skeptical of the independence of the source. The better the publication is, the less likely that's the case. And it's a challenge sometimes, because sometimes people genuinely do get real news coverage because they are just interesting people, and in those cases, I would say it's rare for that to be a major issue. I wouldn't want to spend too much time on that. But I think the other point about the press release that's announcing the donation. So you have a press release, and let's assume that it's true. Most organizations are not in the habit of putting out false press releases. What Wikipedia wants to know is not just whether something is true. That's the first part. That's table stakes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing they want to know is whether somebody other than that organization or the two organizations involved, did someone else besides them care about it? Was this maybe the biggest donation that the organization has ever received from a private entity? That might be a hook that a journalist would want to write about. Doesn't necessarily have to be a long article, but it has to be real news coverage, and whatever local publication would cover that. And so this happens a lot with awards too. When someone wants to add an award to their Wikipedia article, if the only coverage of it is the press release from the company that won the award or the organization that gave out the award, they're both self-interested parties. And Wikipedia would want to see, well, did a local publication write it up? And if the local publication wrote it up, then that's something that could be added, because they're looking to that validation from journalists, not just verification.
And so local news coverage, I mean, if you're not in a big city, it's not necessarily a big news.
Yeah.
So, but local news coverage counts. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
So print coverage matters the most. Television news, even though oftentimes the clips are available on the web, it is not a preferred source. I think Wikipedia editors just have a bias towards the written word. After all, that's what they are, turning it into. That's what they're dealing with every day. Truly, if you are, a local entity, then on one hand, it is easier to qualify for an article if you have a broader reach. But it's not to say that local topics, cannot get articles. The kinds of publications you would look to you would want to look to probably more like legacy publications, like the established local newspaper or alternative weekly, as opposed to maybe a blog that covers local goings on. Which is not to say that local blog could not be considered a reliable source. It may well. I lived in Washington, D.C. for many years, and there is a blog about the local goings-on called Popville. And it is, over time, it started out as just one guy doing a thing, and it's been around for over a decade now. So it's kind of morphed into a real publication. And so if somebody looks us up and I'm wrong, I'll live with that. But I would bet that Popville would be accepted as a reliable source for topics in the Washington D.C. area, or like DCist, for example. I think now defunct again, but it was a blog about local goings on in D.C. that was kind of semi-pro. I think that that would have a chance of being considered real. The thing is, what is counted as a reliable source is a topic about which Wikipedia editors argue every single day. It is impossible to draw a clear line around a set of publications and go, these ones are reliable and these ones outside the circle are not. It is their weighing factors in terms of what is the evidence that we should trust this publication. Fact checking and accuracy, having if you can show that they've issued corrections, that's a point, in the publication's favor. If it's well known that they are, paying their staffers, that's a point in favor as well.
And it sounds like if they're still out throwing physical newspapers into people's driveways, that's a good sign as well.
Yeah, being a publication that exists offline is a pretty good indicator. It's certainly not everything. There's there's a print newspaper published by the Falun Gong called Epoch Times. Can't use that. That's basically that's a lot of conspiracy theories and right wing talking points in there. Those are not really usable. But yeah, I mean,
So they've blacklisted the whole publication.
Yeah, oh yeah. There are entire publications that they have blacklisted. I mean, look, the Daily Mail, a major newspaper in the UK and major website globally. That website it's deprecated. Blacklisted is a little too strong.
Okay.
You will still find it used as a source, but what editors will say is, well, we'd rather you find some other source. Like if it's important enough, someone else would have, written about it. And you can see varying degrees of that with other tabloids. National Enquirer, though, pretty much blacklisted. Can't use that one at all.
Okay.
And that has a print publication, of course.
Yeah. So it's not okay. I don't want to get too far into politics,
Yeah.
but it goes back to my earlier question of does nonpartisan even exist anymore?
I mean, that is, as somebody who worked in like DC political journalism, I definitely have deep thoughts on that. But I mean, there's basically the classic point of view is that the newspaper is a newspaper of record, and that we may have our biases, but we don't focus on them. We kind of like keep them in check, and we focus on just the facts. But then,
But that's what everybody says.
That's what everybody says. Well, I mean, not everybody says it anymore. You do have more publications who are willing to own up to their view. Semaphore, the startup newspaper, has a section in each of their articles where the reporter gives their own view. So they kind of like the first part of it is written in more of the nonpartisan, let's cover all the bases approach. But then there's a section down below that's like Dave's view. And what does Dave Weigel think about it? He'll tell you. I think
that's almost necessary these days. Everybody on both sides is claiming that any publication on the other side is propaganda. So I think it makes sense to have a facts section of the article presented neutrally.
Yeah.
And what an observer would have, or a security camera or something could have noted.
Right.
And then an opinion section. So here's what I think and what I think you should think.
Yeah.
That seems like a good way to force a little bit more transparency in that regard.
Yeah. And Semaphore, professional news operation, certainly would count as a reliable source for the topics it covers.
I haven't heard of this. You said Semaphore?
Semaphore, Semaphor.
And do they have journalists that lean both ways?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the majority of journalists tend to be at least center-left, and I think that's broadly true even of theirs.
Yeah, I think I saw a graph recently that showed the kind of transformation of the political views of journalists, and it is very much weighted to the left at this point.
I mean, decades ago, you had a lot of journalists who had come up from blue-collar roots, did not go to college, and became journalists. Like it was a hard-scrabble profession. And now pretty much all the journalists at major publications come from elite universities. And, like pretty much everybody who gets a college, not everybody, but, college graduates tend to, vote Democrat and be more left-leaning in their views. I mean, that's not even debatable. That is the fact.
Right. That's part of the facts section of this discussion.
Right.
Yeah. And then the opinion section would be why, which we don't need to get into. Okay, so if my end goal is I want to get a Wikipedia article, the step one is to be noteworthy.
Sure.
And step two is get some journalists to engage, write some stuff in trustworthy publications, even if they are local, and preferably if they have print. Is that?
I think this is all directionally correct. Yes. And everything
Okay.
there's going to be, some nuance. There might be a reason why, a local online publication like a Popville might be better sourced than a national print publication like National Enquirer.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you say, be notable. Like that's, I think one of the challenges for my line of work is we say no more than we say yes, especially when it comes to creating new articles. Uh, I if all the companies that came to us asking for an article, I could say yes to, I'd be. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be doing better than I am now, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how to characterize it. Just like that would be amazing. But we really do have to say no to the majority because they just don't have the kind of coverage that they need. And not everybody can just go out and get it. Like Wikipedia editors do set that bar pretty high, and they know they're doing it because well they know that Wikipedia confers that legitimacy, that authority, and they themselves don't want to be arguing about who's important as much as they can help it. So they
Hmm.
outsource that to journalists. And yeah, like, I would say instead of be notable, I would say get notable. Like we don't, treat it as a static thing that, subjects may not warrant an article yet, and then down the road they might. So
Yeah.
it is a matter of getting that coverage though. Step two.
So for a small business, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
one way that I could see somebody being or getting notable is growing insanely fast. They might gain some
Sure.
articles about or hiring tons of people or something.
That could be
But
helpful. Yeah.
yeah, for a small business doing, let's say $1 to $10 million
Right.
and growing at a reasonable pace,
Yep.
not doing this exponential, I'm going to become a millionaire overnight kind of
Right.
stuff, which most of it's BS anyway. But
Right.
they're just doing it. They're just running their business. They're doing the work. What are some ways, what are some things that they might do to get that noteworthiness?
Good question. Very much depends on what line of business they are in, of course. Um, the first thing I would say is get a publicist. Work with somebody who is experienced in placing their clients in publications. And the second thing is to be aware of what kinds of stories are going to be helpful toward getting an article and which ones are not. Then you can at least focus their attention on the things that are more likely to move the needle. And like, we work with a lot of PR people. Getting mentioned in the middle of a column can be a win from a PR perspective, and maybe worth doing on its own entirely. Although it's worth being aware that that wouldn't necessarily, if you're quoted on the area of your expertise in a newspaper article, that could be great for your reputation. But it might not do anything for your Wikipedia entry because it doesn't convey any biographical information about you. Um, I would say, start small. Like start off with, the local publications are the ones that are like closest to your industry. Which publication, who has the most interest in the thing that you do? And then the next thing, which is the biggest intangible, the hardest thing to do, it is come up with a hook. Do something. Like you may have to do something that you would not have already done. Like maybe it is make that largest donation to your local animal hospital or something like that, and and get figure out if you can get some coverage for that ahead of time, and then within that article, see if you can get that journalist to kind of like add in some more information
Mm.
about like it's like cornerstone information like when was it founded, where was it founded, who were the founders, what are the services, those kind of key things like you will need to have in an article. But if your CEO just gets quoted on the price of tea in China, then that is not going to get you anywhere. And I think just recognizing that is a starting point that everybody should have, that I think at this point in time most people don't have. So one of my missions, generally is to try to help educate PR and marketing people like what it is that Wikipedia is looking for, because otherwise they might spend a lot of time doing the wrong thing.
Okay. Well, so talking about doing the wrong thing, what are some common mistakes that marketing and PR firms make?
So many. Where to begin? I think the first most obvious mistake on Wikipedia, and we've barely talked about it so far, is not observing Wikipedia's conflict of interest rules. There are a couple of different rules Wikipedia has, but the two to be aware of primarily is there's a guideline that is called conflict of interest. It's worth looking up to see what it says. What it basically says is it's generally better if you're not making the direct changes to your article yourself. I would not say that it is a flat prohibition. It is not a flat prohibition. Like if you see vandalism on an article that's, your boss or you can probably do that. That's probably going to be okay. But if you want to add a bunch of material about, like why you're so great, or you just, add a bunch of material about your corporate history, that's where the guideline suggests instead you ask regular, unpaid, volunteer Wikipedia editors to review a suggestion that you will make, and then if they think that it does make the encyclopedia better, then to move it into place. And in a nutshell, that's what my company does on an industrial scale.
Okay.
The other one to know about is the paid contributions disclosure. This one's a little more, a lot more formal. It comes down from on high. It comes down from the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the nonprofit that runs Wikipedia. It's in the terms of use that says if you are representing, if you have a financial interest in a subject, whether, again, it's a company or if it's a person or if it's a animal hospital, doesn't matter what it is, you are obligated to disclose your connection to the subject. If they find out that you have been editing that page anonymously and you keep persisting, they can block you for doing that. It's kind of rare that it ever goes to that level, but it's there. It's worth knowing if you're going to engage. One, it's just better not to make direct edits, and two, like say who you are when you are going to go to the talk page. Every Wikipedia article has an associated talk page where Wikipedia editors themselves will use that to discuss how to treat certain topics and whether to include or exclude something. Oh, this is important. No, it's not important. Leave it out. This is also where you would go to say, hi there, I'm so-and-so. I work for the Charlottesville Animal Hospital, and I see that it's, including, it has a wrong number of locations. Can someone please update this? And here is a link to the number of locations. I'll tell you what, in this case, that's one where you probably could use the website to get that verified. Not a sure thing, but it's a sort of thing that's more likely to be accurate, sourced to the original, than like to be sourced to like a newspaper article from 3 years ago that listed the number there. So like editors will consider that. And when it comes to creating new articles, it is largely the same thing. Wikipedia actually has a whole project that's called Articles for Creation. And anybody is able to come in and participate in it. You would create a Wikipedia user account and you would write your draft. You put it in a draft space and ask a volunteer editor to review it. And it takes time. It can take even a few months sometimes because the backlog is really long. And if all the pieces are in place, a volunteer editor will move it there for you. If it's not ready, they'll bounce it back to you, and honestly, they may not tell you very much about why. So one reason why we offer, fairly like hands-on services around article creation. Anyway, my point at the top was editing anonymously your article or creating an article anonymously on your own. Wikipedia editors are pretty good about recognizing patterns. If you have an account that you are using more than once to add material to one page, they'll probably figure that out. If you make like more sophisticated efforts to evade that, like by editing a bunch of pages and then making a big update on the key page, they'll probably notice that too. So that's a good way to get yelled at. It's a good way to get, if there's an existing article, to get a warning tag on the article, and that can be pretty difficult to get off. So anyway, long way to say, it's tempting, so tempting to go in and make the direct edit because it's much faster, but you need to weigh whether the juice is worth the squeeze.
All right. So things not to do. Um, yeah, that makes sense. So basically, we're kind of letting the volunteer editors run the show.
I
Out
mean,
of
they already do, right?
curiosity,
It's their project.
you mentioned the Wikipedia Foundation. Where does
Mhm.
that money go if it's volunteers who are kind of running everything?
That is a very astute question, and one which is increasingly controversial within the Wikipedia world. Um, the Wikipedia Foundation, it does not create any of the content, and as we say, it does not pay any of the editors. It controls the trademarks. It controls the servers. It also operates a number of kind of outreach programs and does grant making to not directly pay people to edit, but to try to but to pay people to try to kind of develop situations where people would edit Wikipedia more. And that is something that has come under just increasing, fire. Everybody's familiar with the banner ads, every in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter of
we'll only
every
take up a
year.
minute of your time. Can you give two
Yeah,
dollars or whatever it is? Yeah,
the price of a cup of coffee. Some
yeah,
of them in the past have had Jimmy Wales' face there, and those are always the ones that perform the best. But they
huh.
haven't used them for a while, I don't think.
Interesting.
Um, does I mean, and they have at least $100 million banked, and they spend tens of millions a year. I think it is plausible that they have more money than they really need, and I say that as somebody who has definitely donated to Wikipedia before. They're not going to change the model and start paying editors. They're just trying to, again, create the conditions where there would be more editors. But there's a lot of room for disagreement among what those, how that's done. And there's been a lot of argument about like kind of DEI related efforts as well. And a lot of Wikipedia editors would argue, actually, that is pretty close to the mission of sharing sharing information with everybody in the world, everywhere. But it's just the kind of thing that people are not going to stop arguing about. And so it usually oftentimes comes up in like the fundraising campaigns. You'll see this is so inside baseball, but like Wikipedia editors have kind of mucked with the advertising with the fundraising process. So like there are certain very effective ways to phrase those banners. But if they're too alarmist, like Wikipedia editors have stepped in and said, "No, you're not," and they've actually toned them down.
All right. So, drama.
Oh yeah, I mean Wikipedia is never short of drama.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I've been hearing, I think, and this is kind of the theme of 2024, since it's an election year.
Hmm.
I think everybody being accused of being more political than they say that they are.
Yeah,
Wikipedia has not been free of those accusations. Um, so, yeah, always drama. Um, so you mentioned a little bit about if there's an article about me or my company or something that, and I'm like, oh, that's not true.
right.
It sounds like that's something that I could go in and say, hey, I'm this person. Can we fix this?
Right.
Even though that's typically not recommended. Is there anything else I could do or any listener could do if they see something about themselves that they would
Right.
want changed?
So the thing you are supposed to do is to go to that talk page, raise the issue, and ask somebody to to take care of it. You have to know that you have the right of Wikipedia content guidelines, and if it's a factual thing that could be proved one way or the other, you might need to bring in a source. Although you are never obligated to, prove a negative. You cannot prove a negative. Wikipedia wouldn't force you to do that either. Other than that, what else is there to do? I mean, conduct yourself in a way that is not going to, bring criticism to you. I don't think that's really useful advice or anything. Because Wikipedia, gets updated by anybody, anytime that they want to. Not everybody observes the rules, and sometimes we definitely have seen cases where a disgruntled employee or former employee or an excommunicated former co-founder has
Yeah.
gone in and messed with a page. And if they are really, really, if they are really, really motivated, that can be, speaking of drama, that can be quite a challenge, especially if they are operating on the, like, hey, I'm just a regular editor. If they're not, like, at the time financially connected to the organization, that can definitely be the sort of thing that gets, you know, it's not like you ever have to take the word of one other Wikipedia editor and it's just like, he said, she said, and it just stalls out there. There are ways to escalate it. So if you do run into an obstinate editor who you're really sure has the facts wrong or the policy wrong, there are mechanisms to seek additional input from other editors. There's one called Third Opinion, where you can basically list your discussion on a separate page, and an editor who has not been involved previously can come in, read it, and issue their take on it.
Hmm.
And usually you kind of have to take what they say, so there's that matter. Or if you really want to escalate this and you're sure that something's really, really wrong and that like Wikipedia is making a big mistake here, there's a process called request for comment. And a request for comment is kind of a formal thing where you like pose a question and then you invite Wikipedia editors in to weigh in on it. And you will see this on high profile topics more than you would not see it for a local company. Wikipedia editors have to be interested enough in the topic to come argue about it, and they have plenty of things to argue about. So you better make sure yours is good.
Yeah.
But you'll see this in like biographies, though. Like Wikipedia editors do care a lot about getting biographies right. So if we're talking about the profile of a CEO or any business person, you should be aware of a policy called Biography of Living Persons. And what that says is anything that is like potentially defamatory that also does not have a really strong source should be taken out of the article. And so that's another thing where you could potentially make a direct edit to that page if you're very sure that the thing is, if it accuses somebody of committing a string of burglaries and that's absolutely false and there's nothing to it, you can go in and remove that. Wikipedia editors are not going to give you trouble about that. If, however, somebody comes back and says, no, here is the news article about your, director of marketing committing a series of burglaries, it's going back in. I mean,
well, that kind of gets at what I was just, where I was curious about next is, well, what if I just don't want something on there?
Yeah.
It sounds like if it's demonstrably true,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what I want.
Again, directionally correct, but I can think of examples of where that might not be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not just that a thing is true; it's also a question of whether it's in scope. So, without a kind of a controversial one for biographies would be like if someone received a DUI at some point in the past. That might be true. You could certainly demonstrate it through court records, and it might have been if the person was prominent at the time that it occurred. There might even be a little bit of news coverage about it. However, if that was sort of an isolated incident and wasn't repeated, and decades later, should that still be included in the entry, or is that like it's kind of the same problem with Google, where people like as you well know, there's a whole industry based around trying to kind of quote on push down bad results. I know you can't push them down. You can only push other stuff up.
But yeah, you could bury them with other stuff.
Exactly right. And look, I will say this on Wikipedia, if we're working with a company or a person that has some controversial aspect of their history that cannot be, that belongs there in some way or another, one, we'll try to make sure that it sticks only to the facts and is not like, too long. We'll also try to put good stuff above and below it. We'll try to look for how else can we build out that story. But there are some things that just might not be within scope. And that is a thing that I wouldn't recommend anybody try to go in and just delete that DUI on their own, but go to the talk page and go, hello, I work with this person's representatives, and this was like 20 years ago and had no impact on their career. Does this need to be there? And I can't guarantee what the answer will be because Wikipedia editors will make their own judgment calls. But I have seen the answer be, no, this is prejudicial. This is like, you make one mistake. Should it be at the top of your Google search results forever? Same question.
Right.
You make one mistake. Should it be on your Wikipedia article forever? And there's compelling reasons to say no. But it's tricky. And you,
Yeah, well,
yeah, go ahead.
And you're just getting at something that I think is hugely important to the whole conversation, which is that Wikipedia often is the top of the Google search results.
Oh, yeah.
And so whatever, these editors have a lot of power. Whatever they're putting in these articles is going to be among the first things that people discover if they are Googling that topic.
100%. Yeah, I mean, if Google was not listing Wikipedia near the top of, most search results, my business would not exist.
Right.
At least, I wouldn't have focused on this. People come to us because people go looking for information. They find Wikipedia. At this point, everybody knows it, and its reputation has improved. You go back 20 years ago, and it was like, don't use Wikipedia. Certainly, teachers would say don't use Wikipedia, and in general, just the feeling was you can't trust it, but it might be useful just for some background information. That's what they say about AI these days.
Right.
Wikipedia itself has come a long way. Now AI is the untrustworthy but still useful version, and Wikipedia.
Well, and AI is verifiably wrong about a number of things. So we use AI when we're writing blogs, but part of our process is to fact check everything that it claims.
So I never use ChatGPT or its ilk for things where I need the facts to be exactly true.
Right.
I think I use it in a way that a lot of people used to use Wikipedia and still use Wikipedia, which is like, give me the gist.
Yeah.
If I just need the gist, I would go so far as to say that ChatGPT is better at giving you the gist right now. Whereas Wikipedia's been around. Some of these articles are 20 plus years old. They've had time to grow longer and longer and longer. If you look at the Wikipedia article for dog today, it's massive. If you want the gist on what dogs are all about, that's too much to read. If you went back to the Wikipedia article about dogs from 2004, there's a pretty easy to digest article about what a dog is. And I think that GPT would probably give you however much or as little, on dogness as you can handle.
Right. Yeah. You'd have to keep asking for more. It would start small, and then you could say, "Okay, tell me more." Yeah.
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 Let me ask you this: are you familiar with the Simple English Wikipedia? Does that ring a bell?
I'm not familiar with it.
Not familiar with it. It doesn't come up in search results nearly as much, but it is an alternative version of Wikipedia. There's hundreds of language editions, but there's actually two in English. There's the Wikipedia we think of, and there's the Simple English Wikipedia. And that is aimed at people who are learning English. It's aimed at children, perhaps. But it's nowhere in Google search results, so nobody sees it. I bet if you went to the Simple English Wikipedia article for dog, that would be quite digestible, and you'd have a pretty good idea what a dog is after that. It's fun to go click around because you see these topics that how are they going to summarize the Middle East conflicts in neutral, as few words as possible. You can go find out because there are editors who work on that. It's not as big as the English Wikipedia, the regular one, but it's a kind of fascinating thing on its own.
So there's fewer articles, so it's really going to be kind of the top the top charts of the hits basically.
Yeah, it'll be the biggest subject. I mean, and I don't know off the top of my head how many articles there are. It's not small. It's it's a major. It's big, but Wikipedia is vast. It's going to hit 7 million articles, I think, by the end of the year if it hasn't already done it yet. Yeah, and it's been a couple of years since it hit 6. I remember when it hit 5, and it'll keep growing as there's more things that happen in the world, and as more marketing campaigns are successful in making their subjects notable.
Right. Well, we've covered a ton here. So, anything else, in terms of, you've talked about what we can do to get onto Wikipedia. Anything else that a brand representative might want to know in order to be effective on Wikipedia?
I would say it's certainly just worth, educating yourself or your team about the basics of how Wikipedia works. If you work at a company, you might have a lunch and learn from someone like me to kind of explain what kind of the rules of the road are, and a little more specifics about how Wikipedia views sources. We touched on that, but it can be really helpful just to know kind of like what the thinking is around, primary sources versus secondary sources, and so forth. Perhaps even come up with a Wikipedia policy. Like, you could potentially have one person create an account, and they are like the representative to Wikipedia for the organization. Even if you are not necessarily in the position to create an article about yourself right now, it is possible that there are Wikipedia articles that are relevant to your work that you might be mentioned on, or something to do with your organization could be, mentioned within. You never want to be too self-promotional. Wikipedia does not like to think of itself as a marketing platform, even though it well knows that it has, considerable power in that domain. If it is possible for someone from your organization to be a resource on Wikipedia, to be able to help answer questions editors might have about topics that matter to you, then that can be a good way to kind of get started and set the groundwork for a later point where you might have a topic that you want to create an article about. So those are some thoughts.
So just kind of planting some roots,
Yep.
even if it seems like it's not necessary right now. Get
I
out
would say
there
that's
and
right.
participate a bit.
Yep.
How would a person discover if they are mentioned on an article?
So, Wikipedia has the search function to the top middle of, I think, every page. And so when you search, it'll first return articles with like that keyword in the title or as close to it. It's a pretty good search, like in the sense that it's not like it'll look for like similar terms, and it'll kind of look a little bit further to make sure that it's catching everything. But it'll also start returning articles where that topic is merely mentioned. So it can be worthwhile to take like the URL for your publication or for your company even, and drop that into the search bar and see, like, is your publication, is your site being used as a source anywhere on Wikipedia? Or, if you search for like your, again, like your CEO's name, and there's no article about them, but it's possible that there is an article on, their area of expertise that, someone has quoted them about. I would caution about going in trying to like ask to add, the single quote. I think editors would be like, yeah, we don't need that.
Right.
Like adding links. I think, we didn't talk about this too much here, but like adding links to Wikipedia back to your publication, like backlinks. Like Wikipedia certainly like could be a powerful place to have a link there, but Wikipedia editors are so cautious about, promotional campaigns. And they know the power that it has. That like years ago, I worked with a television network to try to get editors to add links to an existing parameter of a template that was asking for it. And at the time, I was so like afraid of being called a spammer that we didn't go in and make direct edits to those back then. I actually think that in this day and age, I might be a little more bold about it now. If the parameter exists, someone's been asking for it to be there. Like, I think I would probably go and like explain what I'm going to do, invite editors to come ask me about it, and then just test it out and see.
So tell me what you mean by this. You mentioned templates and parameters, and I think
Oh,
you're
sure.
speaking beyond my
I am. Yeah.
understanding.
Okay. So think of an info box.
Mhm.
On the top right hand side of not every, of many articles will be like, the company logo or the headshot and like the born or founded and known for. And, that's one place where a official link can definitely go on Wikipedia. At the bottom of the page as well, there are also like what they call nav boxes.
Mhm.
So different subjects will have like a box that collects a bunch of articles that are related to, together. Like, Virginia related articles. Like there's going to be a box and it'll have like major municipalities and things like that. Um, for this network that we worked with, a lot of templates for major like political figures had a parameter, had a little like line saying add in a link to their interviews here. And so at the time, I was really afraid that I would be called a spammer for going through and like dropping in like the link to that person's interviews on the network. And so we were not particularly successful. I tried to like attract editors to come make the updates for us, and it was just too fiddly. It was just too much work. I think it. I see. Today, I would want to go. Today, I would challenge that, and I'd
Mhm.
say, like Wikipedia, here's a case of where your rules are making it too difficult to improve the encyclopedia. Now, the reason why I would consider doing that is because there's the pre-existing parameter basically asking for that link. Um, but if like Wikipedia is not already asking for a link to your publication or to your website, then I would recommend generally not going in and trying to do that. Certainly not systematically. I have from time to time undertaken projects where we were able to, make the case that our client's website was a unique resource on a particular subject, and it had information to add to the article that did not that was not previously there and couldn't really be sourced to anywhere else. That made our client's source the ideal source to use there. And so probably in that campaign we got like no more than 5 links placed because the bar to the bar for entry there was so high. So not
Wow.
to say it can never be done, but
Yeah.
it's
But it's
not fun.
difficult.
Very difficult, among the most difficult things to do. Yep.
Well, and that's what when you initially reached out, that's what caught my eye about, and wanted to do this, have this conversation
Yeah.
was, Wikipedia is seen as kind of the absolute goal of getting a backlink for SEO.
Sure.
And there's some debate about how much it would matter because you mentioned
Right.
before we started recording that they are no follow links.
Yep.
From what I've read about how Google functions, it's likely that it would still be a powerful backlink.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Um, and part of that, I think, is because it's so difficult and
Oh
because
yeah.
Wikipedia takes a lot of time and energy to make sure that
Yeah.
they remain authoritative and trustworthy.
Yep.
Even the no-follow link would likely sway Google's
Yeah.
opinion of the website that is linked to a
Yeah.
bit.
You know, let me add in another thought here that we didn't talk about before. But are you familiar with Wikidata, that website?
No.
So Wikidata is another project from the Wikimedia Foundation. So it's also edited by Wikipedia editors. The shorthand way to explain it is Wikipedia is meant to be read by humans. Wikidata is meant to be read by computers.
Hmm.
It is a structured database, and Google relies heavily on Wikipedia. It also relies on Wikidata. I think they closed down their own knowledge base like over a decade ago, I think, to rely upon Wikidata. And so at Wikidata, the threshold for creating a new entry is much, 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 much lower. You just have to have like it has to be real, it has to be able to be connected to other subjects, and you have to have some kinds of sources. It does not have the same kind of requirements around. They have to be journalistic sources. It does not have the same requirements around. Don't edit your own entry. It is a lot more permissive. It just asks like that it be true, and that you can, verify it. And so, like, if your company does not have an article on Wikipedia, you can go create one on Wikidata. Now, of course, it's not going to push you to the top of Google search results. It's not nearly as valuable as Wikipedia. I also say from experience, creating a Wikipedia article pretty much automatically will generate a knowledge panel on your Google search results. Creating a Wikidata entry, item they call it, is not going to automatically create a knowledge panel. It can count towards one, but it is not the, it's not your, one fixed solution. But if you're looking for a thing to do, that would be a thing that you could do, is go populate Wikidata with information about your company, your executives, your products. That's the thing that anybody can do, actually.
Okay, so you got me curious. I'm gonna.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to look up what is the. What's the website here? Wikidata.com.
.org. Wikidata.org. So yeah, does Clearbrand have a Wikidata entry? If not, you can make it today.
Well, I'm looking up the authority score. So.
Oh, sure.
On SEMrush, Wikidata.org has an authority score of 76, which is significant. And so you're saying that, give me a website that has a link from Wikidata.
You mean, I see. Gosh. I'd have to go look one up.
Does yours?
We've been talking about making one for ourselves for so long. I don't know if we've ever actually uploaded it. I mean, talk about the, the cobbler's children having no shoes. We don't have a Wikipedia article, and
you got a link though.
But we have a link. Oh yeah, we're linked on Wikipedia somewhere for sure.
Yeah, you've got. I'm looking at your backlinks, and there's one there. What is this? Wikipedia statement on Wikipedia from participating communications firms. So you have a
that
link
would have
on
been
that page.
That's the open letter that you mentioned in my intro.
Okay. So that was great. That was noteworthy enough to get you a. This looks like a press release on Wikipedia, basically.
Yes, a press release is acceptable on Wikidata, in the way that it's not on Wikipedia. Yeah, I looked up my name on Wikidata, and the first result is a chapter that I wrote for a book from MIT Press about Wikipedia, where I wrote about that 2014 open letter. And so the sources in there probably be the MIT Press book.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So I think it would be fun to play around with Wikidata a little bit and just see what is generated. It's an interesting space where you said it's not made to be read by humans. It's not going to rank on Google itself, but it has a nice authority score. So if it's possible if it's easier to get linked on that site, we're going to go try it. We'll see.
You should try it. Vastly easier, for sure.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. That's awesome.
Boy, people really have to watch or listen to the very end of this conversation to get maybe the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, what is potentially the most actionable item comes at the very end of this here.
I'm glad we got to it. I guess it didn't occur to me immediately, but Wikidata's there.
Yeah,
and we do some work on Wikidata, but we kind of not never, but rarely do Wikidata alone. We have done Wikidata alone for certain companies that have multiple major programs and initiatives, and they want those to be better organized for mostly again for Google's benefit. We did that for a major tech company a few years ago.
Well, okay, you probably don't want to give me the website of the major tech company.
I'm cautious about mentioning clients because even though a lot of times it's out there, right? You can if someone from my team represented the company, it'll be there on Wikipedia. And yet, just kind of discretion being the better part of valor, even though I think the work we did was good, and if somebody comes across it, then, I'm happy for them to review it. But I'm just sort of cautious about going out there and putting a potential target on somebody's back. There was an article a weeks ago in a publication called Pirate Wires that like I agreed to be interviewed for, and then the author went and like followed all the links and like listed a bunch of our clients, some pretty high profile clients, and we were a little bit like, okay, like this is all public information. We're fine with
this. They found it themselves.
Yeah, and they're right. They did it. They did that research themselves, and it was fine. Nobody. There was one client who like gave a heads up to about it, and they were like, "No problem. Thanks for letting us know." And that was it. So
wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you offline who it was, but just for the purposes of the conversation, I will.
No worries.
Keep that.
Well, this has been super informative. I mean, it's even if. So, going through that process of if I want a Wikipedia article, here's how I do it. Even if you don't end up with a Wikipedia article, because it is difficult, you're still going to do things that are noteworthy, which is great. You're going to get some PR, which is also great. So it's going to be a good steps to take, even if you don't get that outcome for, years or ever.
Yeah.
It's still good to do good things and to get some PR for it.
And then you can put it all on Wikidata. As a fallback.
You can put it on Wikidata. Yeah. We'll go look into that. That's awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Bill. So how would somebody find you?
So, our website, BeutlerInk.com, BeutlerInk.com. We have a newsletter that I write once a month called WikiWise. If you just Google WikiWise, it'll be one of the first links there. Hopefully soon it'll be number one, but we are still, there's some company that's got wikiwise.com. So what you going to do?
Oh, yeah. So they're going to get there.
Outside of my capacity at Beutler Ink, I'm also the author, you mentioned at the top as well, a blog called thewikipedian.net. And I've written that for over a decade. And I launched that before I started Beutler Ink. If you want to see me get controversial about Wikipedia drama, that's the place to go. There's a whole, my most recent post is about a situation where a court in India is trying to force Wikipedia to identify editors who offended a propaganda outlet associated with the Modi government, and it seems like Wikipedia is in the process of complying, and I'm really, really unhappy about that. Like, I think that's a terrible.
Right, that's going to scare away editors. Why would I write something that is true about somebody who might come after me?
Right. It's a terrible precedent to set. You will see other governments try it as well. I don't know where it's going to go, but not appropriate for the Beutler Ink blog, but it's like the opinions of this writer are not the opinions of the business, even though I own both outlets.
Yeah.
The Wikipedian is it's my place for commentary on things that matter to the Wikipedia community, and trying to explain how Wikipedia works to outsiders, and is not about business topics. The business topics you can see at Beutler Ink.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if somebody's in this spot where they feel like they need to have a Wikipedia article and they deserve it, they can reach out to you at Beutler Ink.
hello@BeutlerInk.com is the email to send to.
Okay.
And we would love to have a conversation, of course.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Bill.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast. If you need help with your website or marketing, go to clearbrand.com. You can schedule a free strategy call with one of our consultants, or take advantage of our free resources to help you write, design, or implement a better website and marketing.